I've never gotten a review copy before. To be fair, I also have never been approved for a gun. It did feel kind of cool to play a game for free. It felt like the secret agent version of what I was gonna do anyway. So we're gonna reframe this as the Jerk's review of Crow Country. I can't teach you all the puzzles, but I can teach you why certain people shouldn't be given guns. Crow Country is a horror game and an homage to several generations away. It is specifically built to emulate the PS1, which is kind of the indie game version of thrifting. Though, after doing research, it isn't like them at all, but more so what you think those games were like. You have limited ammo, the world is strongly interconnected, there's a big spooky mystery, someone goes to sleep to the save room theme. I'm going to spoil some stuff, but I won't give you the full plot rundown immediately. But I will be showing some late game areas. When the full spoilers come out, I'll figure out something. Maybe play a really loud sound to get your attention. If that's a deal breaker, I can say before you click off that it's a decent game worth your attention, but nothing that's gonna rock your world, and that I'll miss you. The premise of Crow Country is a simple one. We play as Mara Forrest, a 25-year-old special forces unit that doesn't dress up like a cop, going to a theme park with a loaded weapon. And why is she driving around with that fake mustache and $9,000 in pure cash? Her goal is to find Edward Crow, the owner of Crow Country, a small theme park located outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Sadly, it's got fleshy organ monsters walking around, but we continue on anyway because getting a warrant would take too long, and I bet this feels really good. From here, we need to explore the 5 areas of the park. The central area with the gift shop, the medieval area up north, the haunted hills, the water-themed area, and finally, the underground walkways. All 5 of these are blocked with tons of random things. It could be as simple as a key, or it could be as difficult as getting acid and melting a random fairy statue's head. Doing this will lead you to the various characters around the park. That said, don't expect them to tell you what's going on. Overall, I thought the story was quite nice. It's very slow and procedural. That's gamer speak for, it's mostly reading notes. If you rely on the cutscenes to tell you everything that's happening, it's a story about a nice woman who helps a few people while thinking about murder every quaking second. I was pretty impressed with how each character makes a good impression despite the short time we spend with them. There's even a few conversations I actually remember, which is a lot more than I can say about most of the writing we get. The tone strides along nicely between comical and serious. You'll come out of a war zone covered in gore, then turn around to find an officer that's really upset he had to fucking bike over here. The gameplay of Crow Country revolves around walking around the theme park, continuously unlocking doors while avoiding the monsters, hereby referred to as the guests. The guests will try to get close and give you a hug. You walk around them or put them down. If this were an IGN review and I gave pros and cons, I'd say the map is Crow Country's strongest pro. It's a small map, but it's got a deceptive amount of depth to it. Bits loop into one another. Each area has a strong theming too. You go into that spooky mansion level and it's all fucking spooky mansion. From the room on your right all the way down the hall. It's a spooky mansion until you decide to go to the dark void below the map. It's a very, very compact map. And I don't think you understand just how compact. Lengthwise, it takes you 1.5 minutes to cross the entire thing. And that's with walking. I'm showing you right now. Which I ended up appreciating at the end. You're never too far away from what you need to do or where you want to be. You can be interrupted whenever. No fuss, you can be in front of the fire mashing X through the oddly long flavor text. Not to mention that it just looks good. Macklemore wore it for a reason, though the characters do look like they're straight out of Balan Wonderworld. Mara specifically looks like a goofball with her cylinder limbs and her skull merchant swagger walk. But the vibes are immaculate. Look at this arcade. I'm literally adding sentences so that I can show it to you more. And they expect your ass to look at all of it with a fine artistic lens because they hide half the passwords on a wall. If you don't turn a certain way in a specific room, yeah, I am talking about that one code at the end. For people who enjoy puzzles, Crow Country will probably scratch an itch that you've had for a while. It's not just about finding things and bringing them back. They'll make you do math. How many sharks is worth one octopus, motherfucker? Some made me stop and think. And by the way, stopping and thinking sounds like this to me. Not to forget that a lot of these puzzles are optional for upgrades, which can be annoying to do something you think is for progress but isn't. Though, what you get instead is this organic flow. No quest markers, you find a thing, you do a thing, here's something neat. I should mention that you will get lost a lot. The game doesn't always tell you where to go, but it will do that exactly 10 times. Sprinkled around Crow Country are fortune tellers with 10 limited uses. If you use it once, the fortune teller will vaguely tell you where the next objective is, and if you use it twice, it will tell you exactly where to go. I would also never use this in the hopes that I'll need it, but Crow Country is only 5 hours. That's a rate of 2 fortunes per hour. You also have your inventory to work with. Unlike Resident Evil, this isn't capped. You won't find any boxes to manage your weapons. Safe rooms normally contain a save spot and maybe an optional puzzle, meaning you don't really need to plan where you're going. You don't need to assess whether the shotgun is worth taking along this time. Every slot in your inventory has an exact item it's waiting for. The only sticking point is trekking back to the car to grab pistol ammo and talk to that one teenager you picked up a few hours ago. Also, don't be shy with killing enemies because any marginal amount of progress in the game seems to respawn them, tankier than the last time, which made me a bit bummed. A lot of fun in these games is tactically deciding where to dole out your resources, finding a guy that you've been blowing apart just a little bit every day, until he's just a part of your routine. And that brings me to maybe the thing I like the least about Crow Country, the Crow combat. One of the tenets of old horror games was their wonky controls. Every encounter holds more weight since you know you're gonna fight the enemy and your DualShock. You know the point I'm making. You saw this in another video, I'm sure. You were a good boy. They don't let you to this part of YouTube unless you pass those courses first. Mara aims and you sort of have to grab her arm and move it. It feels less like you're aiming the gun and more like you're dragging it to the right spot. Enemies are tanky too. It's not irregular to have to dump a full clip into a guy before he falls. No, the shooting system does what it wants just fine, actually. The thing that stands out is that the movement is buttery smooth. Mara moves in a full 360 and at a speed much faster than every enemy, and the map isn't particularly claustrophobic. There's more than enough room for you and the guests, removing those crucial moments where you end up boxed in with a bad guy and have to just kinda squeeze in with your shoulders. Combine that with the respawning enemies all over the place, and you basically have no reason to kill anything. They're slower than you, dumber than you. In practice, Crow Country is just swerving around the enemies like they were traffic cones. Even if you did pick the full murder option, the game seems happy to give you ammo. Plus, if you backtrack like a single minute, Mara's car has an unlimited supply of pistol rounds in the trunk. Also, I lied to you. The first gun will require a full clip to down an enemy, then you get a shotgun that does it in 2, a magnum that does it in 1, a flamethrower that, well, okay, you guys can keep that one. And it's not just that, there are tons of things that deflate the combat. Most of the guests are briefly stopped by your bullets, and your standard pistol has a really high rate of fire, meaning that the bad guys that move after you have no hope to actually land a blow. Then I double lied to you. I found a damage upgrade for the handgun, meaning the first half of the game I was stun locking the horror, and by the end I didn't need to. At a certain point the game just became the puzzles. Which is why I have to say the words I really don't want to. Crow Country didn't scare me a single bit. And I worked for it too. I played the game late at night. I shut out every distraction, turned off all the lights, and still nothing. Maybe someone with less exposure to horror games will find this tense, but I walked this off without even a single sweat. I was startled by the jump scares, but you can jump scare anywhere. Call of Duty can startle you. I can startle you if I want. Games dedicated to the bit like this should have me panicking, counting the bullets, afraid that there's something I might not survive in the next room. I died only once in Crow Country and it was to the mushroom puzzle. I wouldn't say the game is mindless though. What was that? Oh my god! I cannot tell you how many traps there are. Everywhere. Well hidden traps too. At the start you'll see a bear trap and laugh at how stupid it is, shoot it, ignore it. Oh wow, hey, the wall just bit me. Ouch, I thought that was a part of the environment. Now the ceiling is out to get you. Every flower could spray poison. Ammo on the ground could explode. A smear on the ground might actually be a fella. I have a feeling the traps are here just to make running past the enemies less effective, and it did work for maybe 30 minutes. Then I started to keep my eye out for those dumb chandeliers and shot them down before they could fall on my head. Not that there's a particularly wide range of creatures to be attacked by. The guests are all fleshy, mangled creatures with no rational thought other than to get as close to you as possible. The retro look means you can't really discern what they are. Thankfully, the enemy types are defined by a strong silhouette. However, there's no real diversity to them at all. There's technically several variants, but they all act the same. Get close, hurt you. Even this big guy only equates to having more health. I asked the guests if they had anyone ranged, and they shrugged their shoulders and go, "We got a blob." The closest to a unique enemy I found was this one childlike enemy that was fast, but only attacked when you got close. It's not great as an action shooter either. There's this one fight near the end that threw dozens of enemies at me, and it could have been cool, but a grenade tore them apart instantly. Yeah, there's grenades in this world. To stop people from shaking the vending machines too hard. They're rare, but not nearly rare enough. Fuck, I beat like all the mini-bosses and didn't even acknowledge them as mini-bosses. Though one guy did choke on my 3 magnum rounds because I assumed there would be more. Even this guy at the end was no match for lightly backing up and clicking on him. The only time combat ever felt like it worked was, well, alright, let's talk about the ending. If you don't want spoilers, go here. Mara is obviously not Mara. Her police badge is fucking glued together. She's really a teenager named Elaine Marshall, who was hurt by the very first guest in the park, giving her a terminal infection. All of the guests have it. And now, everyone who is currently at the park has it too. Elaine came all the way out here to look Edward Crow in the eyes and tell him that she's dying and that it's all his fault. The twist is maybe a little goofy, though I like how it's told. It flips your interactions on its head. A lot of your actions in the game seem stubborn. At first you think she's just a cop doing her job. Then you realize that she's a teenager being a little fuck. Why she lacks a sense of professionalism, or why she keeps rambling about her fucking dentist. I don't know how a bedridden high schooler was able to steal a cop's license, but after seeing what she's doing here, I'd be afraid to ask her any more questions. The reveal itself is great. By now you probably already knew that you were never Mara, and you step under a shower to wash out the hair dye. It swaps up your name in the menu and everything. The other twist is the nature of the guests, which actually really fucked me up. They aren't zombies or monsters, they're time travelers, specifically from the year 2106, trying to escape some kind of disease that is wiping out mankind by running through a portal to 1990. This disease is likely the same one they gave you, but the process of time travel devolves them into twisted, miserable creatures that are in constant agony. They aren't trying to kill you, they're trying to ask you for help, but they're so mutated that they can't help it. Edward Crow took advantage of this because the time-traveling pool produced a substance that looks a lot like gold. And here the fucking idiot stands, mutated by the virus they carry just like you. Now he wants to see what happens if he goes through the time machine backwards. For fun. The final boss was weak, but it was the start of something. Edward dips in and out of the pool, constantly changing position and making the wonky aiming controls actually worth a damn. His tentacle attack also forces you to move into the traps set around the arena. He does die a bit too quickly, but the bones are there. I can actually feel the combat system doing what it's meant to do. The ending is just a screen, but I wasn't too upset. I felt like I had enough good moments while also leaving me with enough questions. The only problem is that I couldn't really figure out what the larger point was. The game gestures at having one a few times. Many of the characters ask Mara if the people behind the park could ever be forgiven for poisoning Elaine, not knowing that they're talking to Elaine. Which could be something. A plot about someone deciding the fate of greedy tycoons. Can you forgive people like this? They didn't want to hurt Elaine, but her fate is decisively a result of their greed. Even if they didn't want to, they did. Natalie Crow, Edward's daughter, asks if Elaine is there to kill him, and that she really wants her to try to forgive him. But before any choice could be made, Edward drinks the Mountain Dew and has to be slaughtered anyway. You can choose whether you finish Edward off or leave him as a monster, but by now it's a mercy killing. Though also holding it up as the revenge isn't worth it lens seems tough, because Edward also cures Elaine. Yes, she did have to spend 2 years out of high school, but he's like, okay, I cured you. Actually, I cured everyone. Except me. I don't deserve one. Now watch me get permanent double XP. Okay, we're gonna slurp back in the non-spoiler people in a bit. Everyone be cool. Here, we can all act like we know something they don't. Watch this. And that's why my paperwork still won't get approved no matter how many Disney rides I can fit on. But there was an update, the new game mode called Murder of Crows. Billed as a harder difficulty. Mara's car no longer has ammo in it, the vending machines and trash cans no longer give Mara items, or more specifically, she is too good to search them now. Being injured stops you from sprinting, the fortune tellers are busted, and most importantly, it speeds up the guests' walking speed, so maneuvering around them is a bit harder. It did actually seem like a much stronger frame for the game. I couldn't always kill the enemies I saw, certain rooms were more tense, but in terms of telling you how scary this is, a lot of it has to be guesswork, because I had already beaten Crow Country by this point, so I had built a resistance to it, though I did get to beat the enemies to death with a crowbar. The pun was intended by the game, not by me. And maybe in a year or two when I forget how to do the torture room puzzle again, then I'll play it and get the spooks. As for you, honestly, this would be my recommended go-to for starting players, if it weren't for the resource drain. Murder of Crows seemed doable, and knowing that I could actually get into trouble without ammo adds tension that wasn't there before. But for people jumping right in, I fear that some might get soft-locked, which is very Resident Evil, but I'd hate to ruin the whole game for you by watching that happen. In my mind, normal should be what the game is built around anyway, which is now where I get to do what I came here to do, dispense petty judgment on a game and tell you whether or not to play it. But that's not true, is it? You just want to know where I stand. Crow Country is a decent game, and I think you should buy it, but with some tempered expectations. It's not as deep or refined as you might expect, but it does do a lot of right things where it counts. The story is unironically good. Walking around this park and feeling out each room made for an experience I've really missed. I still can't recommend it for the combat system, though if you want to ignore me, Murder of Crows will certainly inject a sense of drama for some people. I went into the game praying for a terrifying descent. Crow Country wasn't that. It's a love letter to old horror design, but if you open the letter, it's got nice ideas and it's really sweet. You aren't scary, but I know you've got heart and the right person is out there, I'm sure. I do hope they make a sequel. If you loved me enough to listen to this whole video, Crow Country developer, I hope you scare the shit out of me next time. There's a really good framework here, and just because the horror doesn't ultimately deliver doesn't mean I think the product is meaningless. I believe with some reinventions to combat, new enemy types, and some creative set pieces, Crow Country can become a very special type of game. That's the nice way of putting it. The other one I was thinking of was, that's it, buddy? That's all you got? Huh, who needs a gun? That felt pretty good. Hey, thanks for watching. This game left a pretty strong impression on me in the short time I played it, and if one person ends up trying it because of this video, that'd make me very happy. Also, real quick, on another note, I'd like to thank the people on Patreon who made this video possible. I would especially like to thank Ethan A., My Reed, Mario Fan 997, Jonah Simpson, Colorado Ranger, Anthony R. Chambers, Sturmfetter, Rekren, Pyrozine, and Sparkbolt 120. I'm psychically blessing the rest of your day. Literally only good things are gonna happen to you from now on, alright? You got me? But tomorrow you're gonna have to rewatch this ending section, otherwise it doesn't work. Alright, cool. Glad we have this between us. See ya!